that you are today in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland. You are most welcome. And please feel home. In general, the policy of the Somaliland government is to encourage all investors across the globe.
Somaliland's rising moment, mining investment, global interest, and the push for recognition. Somaliland is stepping into a new chapter of economic and geopolitical relevance as it actively positions itself as an emerging hub for mining investment while also drawing renewed international attention to its long-standing quest for recognition. Recently, the territory hosted a high-level delegation of investors from Australia and Canada, signaling growing global interest in its largely untapped natural resources. This visit reflects not just economic opportunity, but a broader shift in how Somaliland is being viewed on the international stage. The delegation, composed of experts in mineral exploration and resource development, arrived to assess the viability of investing in Somaliland's mining sector. Upon landing at Eagle International Airport, they were warmly received by senior government officials, including representatives from the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Energy, and Investment. The reception also included traditional leaders and local business figures, highlighting a coordinated national effort to welcome foreign investors and showcase the country's readiness for international partnerships. Following their arrival, the investors traveled to Hargeisa, where they held discussions with top government officials, including the foreign minister. These talks centered on the potential for mining investments, the legal and regulatory framework governing such ventures, and practical steps to facilitate foreign participation. Somaliland's leadership emphasized its openness to investors who operate within its legal system and pledged support through access to geological data and institutional coordination. For their part, members of the delegation expressed optimism, noting that they had been evaluating opportunities in Somaliland for some time and were now considering concrete steps toward investment. This growing interest in Somaliland's mining sector is no coincidence. The region is believed to hold significant reserves of valuable resources, including oil, gold, gemstones, iron ore, tin, and lead. Recent collaboration with international partners has even pointed to the discovery of lithium deposits, a critical mineral in the global transition to clean energy. Although the full scale of these resources is still being determined, the potential is already attracting attention from global firms and investors looking for the next frontier in resource development. At the same time, Somaliland's economic ambitions are closely tied to its unique political situation. Since declaring independence in 1991 following the collapse of Somalia's central government, Somaliland has operated as a self-governing state for over 3 decades. Despite maintaining relative stability, democratic governance, and its own institutions, it remains unrecognized by any country in the world. This lack of recognition limits its access to international finance and formal diplomatic relations, even as it continues to build partnerships informally. Some analysts argue that this is precisely why countries like Australia should consider recognizing Somaliland. Doing so, they suggest, would not only support democratic principles, but also strengthen strategic influence in a region that is becoming increasingly important geopolitically. The Horn of Africa sits along key global shipping routes, and Somaliland's location along the Gulf of Aden makes it particularly significant. Recognition could also open doors for Australian businesses to invest more confidently in sectors like mining, infrastructure, and energy. There is also a strategic dimension to this debate. If Somaliland remains diplomatically isolated, it risks becoming a vacuum that could attract destabilizing influences, including extremist groups or competing global powers seeking to expand their presence. In contrast, stronger engagement from democratic nations could help reinforce stability and promote responsible development. Historically, Somaliland's claim to independence is rooted in its past as a British protectorate, which gained independence in June 1960 before entering into a voluntary union with Somalia just days later. However, that union was never fully ratified through a legal process and was later rejected by Somaliland's population. When the Somali state collapsed in 1991, Somaliland reasserted its sovereignty and began rebuilding from the ground up. Since then, it has developed a functioning political system, held elections, and maintained relative peace compared to the instability seen in southern Somalia. Despite its lack of formal recognition, Somaliland has managed to establish informal ties with several countries and entities, including the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Kenya, and Taiwan. It hosts a Taiwanese representative office, a move that has drawn pressure from China, but also signals Somaliland's willingness to engage independently on the global stage. Major international companies have also taken notice, investing in projects such as the development of the Berbera port, which has become one of the most efficient in sub-Saharan Africa. Critics of recognizing Somaliland often argue that it could set a precedent for secessionist movements across Africa. However, supporters counter that Somaliland's case is unique due to its historical independence and the legal ambiguities surrounding its union with Somalia. They point to examples like the Baltic states, which regained recognition after the collapse of the Soviet Union, as evidence that historical sovereignty can form a legitimate basis for statehood. For Somaliland, the path forward is likely to involve a combination of continued economic development and gradual expansion of international partnerships. The recent visit by Australian and Canadian investors is a clear sign that the world is beginning to take notice, not just of its resources, but of its stability and potential. As interest grows, so too does the possibility that Somaliland could transition from a largely overlooked territory into a recognized player in both regional and global affairs.